Hi, everyone. And it's Friday and a little dreary in New York, but another installment of Email and Coffee. I'm talking with Judy Baker, and we're going to talk about books, one of my favorite topics, because I'd say that I'm an avid reader. But Judy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I was kind of a rebel as a teenager, but I was very polite, but I still was a rebel. I started a trend by taking a class that formerly was just for boys. And I had a girlfriend who was about 10 years older, and she worked for the company called Verityper. It was the first uh, computerized typesetting machine, and I wanted to learn how to do that. And the reason was I had a book of poetry that I had written and illustrated. And in the class, I got to set the type, learn how to use an offset press. And as I said, I was a groundbreaker. And the next year, there were 10 more girls who took the class, and then boys started taking the home ec class. So I kind of started a trend. And I've always loved books since I was tiny. I used to go to the library with my dad probably 3 times a week, and I would check out all the books I could carry. As a grown up, I thought that was going to be part of my career path as an actress. I thought, oh, I'll be an actress and I'll write books. But I listened to one of the professors that I took a class from, and I stopped writing for about 30 years. So little did I know that was going to happen. As I started writing again, I realized I'd been writing all along because I was always producing content for the companies I worked for, press releases, product copy. And I sort of look at books and writing and acting as different ways of communication. So I've always done that. And then this was the kicker. In 2009, I went to a self-publishing conference with one of my clients, and I walked in the room and I got goosebumps. I went, oh, this is my people. I love this. And I saw all of these authors who had written amazing books, had no clue about marketing. And I had been doing marketing, branding, identification. And I went, okay, I can help these folks. And as it turns out, all of my clients had written books. So that kind of put me on a different trajectory. So I shifted my coaching practice to focus on branding for authors. And then I had an interruption in 2013 because turns out I had ovarian cancer. And during that period of 6 months during treatment, I was reevaluating everything in my life. And when I recovered, which took about 3 years, I recognized that the resilience and tenacity that I used to get well was the same thing authors need when they are self-publishing, whether they're or publishing with a traditional publisher, to market their book. If you aren't consistent and resilient, nothing's going to happen. So that's me.
And I can't say how many times I've said this, maybe a million. These are transferable skills.
Absolutely.
And we often don't think about something that's happened in life and how that translates to work. And, oftentimes employees and during, employers and during interviews, they don't either. But, it's what makes, true grit. It really is what makes grit.
Well, when you're talking about that, I actually was in human resources also. And that was why I was so good at it, because I would listen to the whole story and then I'd go, oh, you would be perfect for this bank because you speak French. You have this other interest in, let's say it's running. I mean, because there were definitely firms that if you were not a jock, don't go in the door because you were not going to fit. And then when I worked in-house, the same thing. I listened very carefully to see what motivated those people, not just their job skills, but what else they were doing to know if they were going to be comfortable in, was it a fast paced, was it a pressure environment? Was it a little bit more contemplative? And man, I've had that talent my whole life.
It's a beautiful thing. So when you're writing, I mean, let's just talk about the very first thing. Like, you want to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
What are the options these days?
Well, are you talking about the subject matter or the options for publishing?
Options for publishing.
Oh my gosh. The options for publishing have just magically transformed. At the time that I started getting involved with self-publishing was just the beginning. That was about the time that Amazon's shifted from you had to be a publisher, a big publisher, to having self-publishing. It was still really a slog to get your book into their system, but they opened up. They went from Lightning Source to then creating, oh God, I'm trying to remember what it was called at the time. Now it's called Kindle Direct. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not just for the Kindle platform, it's way easier to upload a completed manuscript with a beautiful cover and also create an author page, which I'm an expert at doing that too. So that's one. So that's for self-publishing. But you also want to publish on a platform outside of Amazon if you're intending to get your books into retail locations or distribution. And one of the best options for that is using a company called Draft, 2 Digital. And I happen to be friends with Mark Coker and with Kevin Tumlinson, and they merged Smashwords with Draft to Digital last year to create a bigger platform, and partly to respond to the fact that, unfortunately, after Robin Cutler left Ingram Spark, customer service is not quite the same thing. But Ingram Spark is the company that is responsible for helping you get into the retail locations. But to circumvent the not the best customer service, if you go through Draft to Digital, you can get your manuscript reviewed by a real live person to be sure it's formatted correctly. And you can choose which distribution channels you want to be in. Much simpler than if you wanted to go to all of the different ones yourself. But you can do that. But the reason I'm saying to go to Draft to Digital, they've already established relationships with all those distributors like Kobo and Barnes and Noble and bookshop.org. And so instead of having to go to 10 or 100 places, you go to Draft to Digital. They take a small amount when a book is sold. But for all of the headaches that you're solving, it is totally worth it. And they are always up to date on the latest technology, which includes ebooks, audiobooks, print books. And a lot of authors don't even recognize they're missing opportunities because they've only published in one platform. And especially with nonfiction books, I typically will listen to the audio version of a nonfiction book. And then if I find it super helpful, I'm going to order a print version so I can mark it up and have it at my fingertips. And people do tend to do that more often than not. And now we're seeing that Spotify has entered the book market. They want to dominate everything audio. So now you can put your audiobooks up on Spotify. It's starting to take off. They purchased Findaway Voices, which is kind of a matchmaker between authors and narrators. Mm-hmm. So audio, oh my God, audio is, I think it's the sweet spot. And we're seeing authors publish audio first. Mm-hmm. And then getting the other formats out there, and they're serializing their books, turning them into podcasts. And for self-publishers, especially, you could create your own store using a platform like Shopify. Shopify integrates with print-on-demand services like Lulu.com and several others, Bookwell in the UK. So you could now have your own store, but you still want to be out there on Amazon, and you do want to be out there on a platform like Ingram so that retailers and schools and libraries can purchase your book. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's hybrid publishers too. But with that, I'm going to tell you, always investigate a hybrid and be sure it's the right match for you, and that you talk to some of the other authors and find out their experience, because it's not an even playing field.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, obviously people need to come to you when they're working on a book. It sounds to me like you're the Encyclopedia Britannica Junior or Senior. Senior.
Thank you.
So now we figured out, we've got an idea for a book, and it can be done, and there's lots of avenues, and it's not so much, you'll never be able to get an editor type of a situation. Mm-hmm. Now we know it's almost the word easy comes to mind, but there's other work on the other end, and that's the marketing things that you do. So talk to me a little bit about those marketing pieces that you work on with people and your clients.
Well, I'm looking at it as if you are coming to the table, and the first thing is the book is a conversation with your audience. So there is a purpose you have behind the book. And I'm going to suggest too, before you ever put pen to paper or voice to, translating into text, you want to do some research and be sure your idea is something that people want. Mm-hmm. And you can do that by doing some Google searches. You can use a program, Kindlepreneur, which is made by Dave Chesson, and he's got amazing stuff. And you can verify that people are searching for the keywords and the kind of content that you're intending to put out. Now, your take on the solving of the problem is going to be what sells the book, not just the solution, but how you approach it. And if you start from that point, that you want to be sure people want it, you could do a survey. You could survey your existing community, whether it's on a social platform, you put a survey up, or you do it through email, which I highly recommend. And you could also, we didn't even talk about that, the idea of doing a crowdfunding campaign. Mm-hmm. Crowdfunding is really a marketing campaign. Mm-hmm. So you're laying out for the people who would back you what the book is about, what they're going to get from it, in addition to some of the treats and, incentives to help support you. And by doing that, you have a viable book. Then you organize that information, and some individuals will work with more than one editor. Some will need a developmental editor to help them organize the material and make it really flow and hold together. Some people will only need to work with maybe a copy editor after the book is laid out. And most individuals don't have the skill to do their own layout, although there are programs that can help you do that. It's really a good idea to focus on your expertise and have professionals do those other pieces. If your book cover is crappy or doesn't convey the right tone or message, people will go right by it. So you want to do some research into competitive titles, books that are similar to yours. Take a look at which ones are selling and which ones aren't. If you look at your back cover copy, many authors will start by writing that back cover, because you know what it is? It is an ad. And if that back cover is concise, connects with people both emotionally and intellectually, but the emotion has to be in there. And I'm even talking for nonfiction. If there's not a hook there that makes me go, oh, I need that, then your back cover isn't going to work. But the back cover is also your guide to what's inside. So you're making promises on that back cover of what you're going to deliver. And so that can really help you. I also suggest that you do what's known as a query letter. And even if you're self-publishing, if you're looking for an agent, you're going to need to do this. If you're looking for a publisher, you're going to need to do it. And the query letter outlines what your marketing plan looks like. How are you going to reach people who already knows you, who you would like to connect with, and then what steps you're going to take in order to be seen. Joy, I think I've told you this statistic before, but over 2 million new books come on the market every year. Mm-hmm. And the way I picture it is this big stack of books. And it reminds me, there was an old Twilight Zone episode with Burgess Meredith. Okay, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Yeah. And I met Rod Serling. He came to my acting class, and I was taller than he was. But anyway, in that episode of Twilight Zone, Burgess Meredith breaks his glasses, and there's books everywhere, and he can't read them. And that's kind of what it's like if you do no promotion. If all you do is publish your book, put it up there, and don't say anything about it, people are not terribly likely to find it. They're not going to just stumble upon it. So you've got to have conversations with the audience who needs your book. It's great if you do it before you publish, but even if you haven't established that relationship before, you can reboot your book down the road and talk about how you solve problems, what value you're bringing to the world. And it's not about buy my book. Hello, buy my book, buy my book. No, you're delivering value like in a podcast, in an article. Oh, and articles. Whoa, articles are a brilliant way to get people's attention. I have a friend, Rebecca Rosenberg, and Rebecca has written 3 historical novels, which have all been award-winning. She has a nonfiction book about her life going from being a marketing company to owning Sonoma Lavender Farm, and how she and her husband made that change. And what Rebecca has done, she wrote an article that got picked up by Ms. Magazine related to her, I think it's to her current book. And because of that, she has been on over 100 podcasts and radio interviews, and she got picked up by Ms. Magazine. So you want to think about, who am I trying to reach? Where are they hanging out? And how can I spark their attention? So I look at all kinds of interesting ways to do it, from partnering with, say my book. Well, the book I'm working on 2 books, but one of them is about my cancer journey. Because of that, I'm going to be reaching out to cancer medication companies and to other kinds of organizations that deal with cancer, because we can partner. We could partner together, and I could do a fundraiser for them. I might offer a workshop. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. So you you really need to be open to possibilities. Look at the themes in your book, and then how do they connect, and who else is in that same space? Because maybe you don't have a big name yet, but there's somebody else who does. And I could look up other famous people who have had ovarian cancer and start a dialogue with them. But you want to do that long before you do an ask. You want to give them something. So I'm always about, how can you be generous? How can you share? And if you stand out as a kind and generous and authoritative person, that's how you can sell books and get on stages and really have a whole career built around your book. So does that help?
Yeah, that's wildly helpful. What type of marketing tools do you strongly recommend?
Oh, well, this might sound old school, but email marketing is still number one. And you're going, email marketing and books? What? Well, you want to take some of the content in your book and turn it into your irresistible lead magnet. And what I'm saying is, one person I know, Bonnie Lee, wrote a book called Taxpertise, The Dirty Little Secrets the IRS Doesn't Want You to Know. And that was her first book that was published, and it was targeted towards small businesses. Well, she got published by Entrepreneur Magazine, and they had her as an expert, so she was contributing to their newsletter consistently. But what that did is this is the key. Okay, so it grew Entrepreneur's email list, but it wasn't growing her email list. So as a publisher, if you publish your own book or, as an author, you want to have your authority out there. So if you have a lead magnet that is juicy, you put that up on your LinkedIn profile. You put it up on your other social platforms. And if you have a small email list, you can grow it by constantly giving them good value. But you capture their email so that you can have a conversation one-on-one. When people are on social platforms, think of that as the cocktail party. And now you're making a date, and that's when your lead magnet comes in, and that gets them to see and know and trust you. And you keep deepening that relationship by giving them more value. And for every $1 you invest in email, you're going to get back about $46 in revenue. And every author who has turned writing into a career will tell you, I wish I would have focused on my email list first, because it's exponential. For every person you have on your email list, they know between 250 and 600 people. That's a big number.
Yeah.
And then they're going to share your value with those people they know. So you do that, and you suddenly have this network that you never would have imagined. And when you're on a podcast, you want to say, oh, by the way, here is my gift. So you're getting people to sign up. They get to sample you, and you get them into your community. And then along the way, you can say, oh, if you like this content, here's the link to my book or my course or my podcast. Whatever it is you've done that you are monetizing, that lead magnet brings them in, and then you can cultivate them and grow them. And then you have a bigger and bigger community. Right. And then more people know about you.
Yeah, you do need to sort of have a few different ways to platform your book.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an author, you're going to at least need to have landing pages, which means you're going to need to have some sort of a website. So you're going to need to at least know what you're doing digitally.
Yeah.
And do you have any experience with Substack or something like that? Because there are a lot of different platforms these days.
Yeah, there are. There's Medium, there's Substack. I'm going to throw Patreon in there, because you can have, say you're doing a blog, you can have that be public, but then you can have extra stuff that if someone is a Patreon supporter of yours, they're going to pay for that content.
Right.
And there's a ton of opportunities now. And I was listening to James Altucher's podcast, and he was interviewing, I think it's John Marshall, who started a Smart Blogger.
Mm-hmm.
And Smart Blogger teaches copywriting and also how to use some of the new tools like AI, and how if you're a good writer, then you have these other tools that can help you do the foundation work, the research. And article writing, podcasts, and having that lead magnet. Those are probably your key ways to, really get out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you do need to have at least a landing page. And I work with a number of web designers and services that can automate that. And then after you do that, after you have that landing page, and it could be on your already existing business, your company website, which I strongly recommend. So you might have to have a single page for your book, but you want to point people back to your main website so that you're getting more authority. Google looks at, who's coming to you, how frequently are you coming to your page, how many people, what kind of content you're putting out there. And the more interactions, the higher you rank. So you don't have to be famous to get moved up the chain. And I rank pretty highly because I've been on the web forever. I have video, I've got audio, I've got articles, I've got websites. So the more consistently you put things out and the more visible you are, the better.
Mm-hmm. You gave me a 4-step approach.
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to necessarily get too deep into that, but maybe you could share that with people.
I would be happy to. When you're looking at creating your messaging, because I have a theater background, this is how I look at it. The first thing you're doing is you're auditioning. When you're asking people to, talk with you, you're auditioning. You're checking out, is my message landing? Do people want to know more? So that's first. And you're going to practice it. I mean, you might write things up and you think, oh, this is brilliant. And then you go and say you're in a networking situation and you tell people, and crickets. So you go, okay, that didn't land. And it might just be the way that you're saying it. So you have to audition. After you audition, the next step is you want to stage all of your graphic information, all of your, like your logo, book covers, headshots, your phrasing in one place. So you're staging your marketing information. That makes it a lot easier. So like, I just got invited to be on a summit. I have a folder. I know where all that stuff is. I just go grab it. Boom, boom, boom. It's going to take me 5 minutes. But if it's scattered everywhere, I'm going to be lost and I might miss an opportunity. And I would include in that probably your media one sheet, which is all about you and, how great your content is. The next part is a dress rehearsal. And now it's time you're going to try out your lead magnet. So you've created it, you auditioned it, you got, good feedback. Then you're going to put that up there and you're going to monitor and track how many people are downloading this. How many conversations is this generating? Because that's really the point of your lead magnet. You want to give something to someone, but the next step is you want to be able to talk to them. And I'm really talking about a conversation like this. And when you're in the first phases of this, you probably can talk to all the people who are coming in. Down the road, you may have to automate some things. And I show people how to do that too. Then it's curtain up. You want to, now you're on stage, you are confident about your messaging, people are responding to you, and now you want to ask them to do something after they've already downloaded your lead magnet. It might be you're going to invite them to follow you or be connected to you on LinkedIn. It could be subscribe to my YouTube channel, but you're going to be asking people to do something. They've already said yes one way, but you want to keep encouraging people to do that. And many authors are taking their books, turning them into courses, or they're turning them into, as I said, they're turning them into some kind of content where there's a paywall. So you've got audition, staging, a dress rehearsal, and then curtain up.
Cool. Very interesting. How can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at bookmarketingmentor.com. So that's pretty easy to find me that way.
Do you like to connect LinkedIn with people? Is that
LinkedIn is probably the best way to connect with me, and my LinkedIn handle is Judy Baker. So you go to linkedin.com and put in Judy Baker, and I will come up.
Very good.
Yeah.
You have been delightful, wonderful. One of my go-to topics is always writing a book, and maybe someday I'll write a book.
I know that you will. You have a lot of good things to say, and sharing them through a book. And just think about this. Books aren't just words on paper. It's the ideas. So there's many ways to get those ideas out and into the form of a book.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure I'll be talking with you, and I hope that some of the listeners will connect. Thanks so much, Judy.
Thank you so much, Joy. This has been a delight.
Mutual. And take care, everybody else. That's a sign off for today at Email and Coffee. Toodles.